Hey everybody, Rex League Project. How the heck are you? As you can see, we have Gandalf the Grey, we have Odin, we have Greg Allison with us. Super excited about this opportunity. It's been way too long. The good news is because of the time that it's been in between our conversations here at League Project, it's going to be that much more epic. So, folks, I have an introduction I would like to share with you. This is very important. I was attempting to come up with the best title, but let's just use this for now. The biggest threat to our way of life and civilization as we know it. Now, Greg is a contractor for NASA. He is not a civil servant at NASA. He is a contractor at NASA. He is also a Guinness Book of World Records holder for the highest altitude amateur rocket launch. The rocket is still in his backyard. The program manager for Huntsville, Alabama L5 Society, which is the HAL-5 High Altitude Liftoff Halo program, also president of High Altitude Research Corporation, which is HARC. In these capacities, Mr. Allison is actively developing cheap access to space technologies. I have to keep my hands down so people don't think I'm giving them Illuminati signs. Mr. Allison has worked on the ISS program, the International Space Station program, for Grumman as a systems engineer, as well as many other highly advanced aerospace projects, like being a product assurance engineer on projects like the Orbital Space Plane, X-37, and HITEX. Mr. Allison also studies means to defend Earth from asteroids and the construction of large-scale space stations. Mr. Allison isn't only a rocket scientist and aerospace engineer, he also develops wormhole generators and offers them to the public. You can see Greg on YouTube with almost daily updates at Green Greg's YouTube channel. I will leave this specific link in the video description box. Also, have you got one of these things yet? They are so cool. I had the opportunity to use mine yesterday on the Jeep Rubicon adventure. Now, this is available at solarwaterheater.com. Now, as people are sheltered in place because of the recent pandemic going around the world, your best friend may be the solar water heater. If you use the code LEAK15, you'll get an extra 15% off. That's solarwaterheater.com. It is an amazing device that allows you to heat and boil water outdoors using simply sunlight. Now, depending on the conditions, this can heat your water in as little as 30 minutes. It will work anywhere the sun shines. You can use it to boil water, cook noodles and rice, or sterilize water for drinking. Whew! I said that as quick as I could, Greg. Thank you very much for being a guest at League Project. It's great to see you. You look awesome. You look healthy. I know you've been going through a lot lately, so thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Rex. Thanks for having me on again. And you're looking great there in your T-shirt. It must be warm up there in Colorado. It's kind of cool down here in the Southeast.
It's getting there. Yesterday, it was super nice until I got up to 11,000 plus feet elevation in the Silverton area, and it dropped down to about 48 degrees during the day. But out here in southern Colorado, close to Durango, it was like 77.
Wow. Wow. Warmer than here.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess warmer than there. So, so what's going on with you, friend? What have you been up to besides let's talk about the good news in your life.
Well, the good news in my life, I've had a lot of challenges of late, some of you may know, but the good news is we're moving forward with this effort to form tribes and communities, survival tribes, survival communities, based on the whole idea that when it hits the fan, if you're a lone prepper, you're going to be hard put to make it on your own. You can be the best in the West and be able to go to the county fair and knock out every bubble and win the biggest stuffed toy. But that does not mean that you can hold off motorcycle gang after motorcycle gang. Sooner or later, your luck just might run out. And not to mention that you got to sleep sometime, you might get sick or injured, and you probably don't have great depth in every skill there is that you might need to know to take care of yourself and survive. That's why having a community can really be a strong asset. Having a community gives you the ability for people to have each other's backs. And I did a little story, Rex, about people having each other's backs on a recent video where I was getting people, trying to talk about forming tribes. And it was aired just a few days ago. People can
Good video, by the way. I saw that.
Oh, thank you. And the story, if you want me to tell it real quick, is I had my best friend growing up was named Stephen Henson. And he and I, we being kids, we had gotten a lot of Wasp Nest, and they were formidable opponents, and we decided we wanted to do something about that. And we started kind of wiping out wasp nests when we got a chance. And then it dawned on us that, we needed formidable opponents. And so we wouldn't wipe them out until they got real big. But we thought it was even more fair if we got them agitated first. So we'd pick on them for a while, throwing rocks and saying, oh, look, we were kids. Boys are crazy. And we were absolutely certifiably insane for what we did, especially I'm going to tell you about, because nobody should try this because it's highly likely you will not survive it. It's what we did was insane, absolutely off the charts insane. We would knock out these wasp nests and we'd wait till they got real big, but that got to be old hat. We wanted something more challenging. One day the opportunity presented itself. We had a well house on my place, farm I grew up on. We had a well house, and Rex, the ceiling, the walls, everything was just covered with wasp nests, wall to wall across the ceiling of wasp nests. I did not think you could have so many wasps in one place. I've never in my life before or since seen anything even close to that, nowhere even approaching. It was ungodly. And to us, that was just the greatest temptation in the world. It was insane. You get so many stings even without anaphylactic shock, which is always a possibility from a single sting. You can get enough in them to kill you. And we were kids. Kids are smaller. They're more likely to have a problem with it. But we went in that well house. Each of us had a section about this long of black, flexible hose pipe. It's not hose pipe, but it's well pipe, the kind you put down a well. It's got some flexibility to it, but it's got some stiffness to it too. It's not like a little garden hose. So not as stiff as a PVC pipe, but not as flexible as a garden hose. You could bend it. But we each had a section about that long, and there was a water spigot right there coming off the water tank in the well house, and it had a hose on it with a spray nozzle. I turned that on, and we just walked in there real quietly. I turned that on. I had spray nozzle in one hand, my swatter hose in the other hand. He had my back. He had the swatter hose in the other back. But see, couldn't have done with anybody. It had to be somebody I knew and trusted that was good at this. Oh my God, Rex, we started spraying and swatting and spraying these wasps inside the well house. We were inside the middle of this hive of wasps. Rex, we killed every single wasp in that well house. And we did not get, either one of us, one single sting. I thought we would get stung some. We did not. We were lucky we lived. I would say there's like a 99% chance or probability you do something like that, you're not going to make it. It was like off the charts, bad, nuts. But neither one of us got one single sting. That is and maybe this was something that we had to learn in life. Maybe it was maybe there was some objective there, and that we needed to learn the power of having each other's backs, because that was a major, powerful life lesson. When you were somebody that you trust, somebody that you know is good, and they got your back and you got your back, you fight for the dickens for each other, and you can take on an overwhelming onslaught if you really got each other's backs. And that is part of the power of community. That is part of the power of tribe. It's having other people that really has your backs. That also invokes that you have to have something of a moral code, and it's got to start with your word is your bond. That has to be powerful, and there's no arbitration to that. Your word is your bond. When you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it no matter what. No matter what, you do it. And also, there's the golden rule, the good golden rule. The good golden rule is the one you do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The bad golden rule that the powers that be use to overlord us is he who has the goal makes the rule. We don't want that rule. But so that is part of the power, part of the message, and why having a community works, why having a tribe works. Now, I'm not promoting tribalism as in communism. I'm a libertarian type sort of person, but I believe in also, that people have natural instincts, and that includes territoriality, and you should have some property rights. And so you need to work that out. And a lot of times these places will be hosted by a property owner, and they've got to absolutely vet anybody coming in the conditions in which that will be done. So every tribe will have its own unique personality, governance. I definitely promote the idea of having a democratic sort of governance. But you also will probably want to have a business entity associated with your tribe in order for it to produce income. That might be something that's majority owned by some particular member, And, that's up to each group to work that out. Somebody was afraid I was going to try to run every tribe. No, it don't make sense. Why would I want to do that? That'd be a nightmare. What I'm trying to do is coordinate, to facilitate, to bring people together. So I've asked people that are interested in that effort to email me at HAL, HAL 5 space, SPACE at AOL.com. I'm using that email address because I don't use it for anything else. It's just my email address. It used to be used for my HAL 5, that's Alabama L5 Society activities. But I just use it for that. This is solely now being used for the tribe. And so it's HAL, the Arabic number 5, space, like, what's in some people's heads, or above the atmosphere, SPACE.
Let me jump in on that. And
Yeah.
I thank you for leaving that email. I appreciate that, because that'll give people an opportunity to send you some information, and that's how they do it specifically. So we've talked before about micro economies, micro communities, how to actually set up a micro community and make it profitable, make it a win-win for everybody. We were even looking at that town, was it Toomsboro in Georgia, where it was pretty much an entire town that was for sale with, I think, 40 or 50 buildings. It might still be for sale. As much as I think that's a great opportunity, you're going to have a tough time pulling me out of Colorado now. I've fallen in love with it out here. But I've also realized how much this area can be secure and safe, and with all of the vegetation, with the mountains, with the animals, with the rivers and the fish and the lakes. It's a good place to be if things get really bad. Now, with that said, Georgia, that area, for somebody that likes that area or doesn't want to be in a high elevation, because it can be tough out here as well, I think that could be an awesome location for a micro community, especially if you get the right people together. But I think that we need to talk about the possibilities of what you foresee could happen, maybe even as soon as December. Now, you're not saying that this is going to happen, but you're saying that you had kind of a vision that in December something caused the grid to fail. Now, when I'm referring to the grid, folks, I'm talking about the power grid. And if the power grid goes down, make sure to listen to some of the podcasts I've done with Greg in the past if you haven't heard him before, because really the biggest threat to our way of life and civilization as we know it is the failure of the power grid. Asteroids, comets, there's a multitude of possibilities. Some type of computer virus or hackers or war are just a few of the possibilities that could cause the grid to go down. So I want to give you an open platform to talk about that, Greg, because you're so knowledgeable and that's such a passion of what you do. That's kind of like your one of your life purposes, I feel, and I think you do as well. Would you agree with that, to help people there?
I agree. This is my, I ran 2 power grid defense conferences. That is my podium placard. So the power grid can be brought down in several ways. It's really a shame that this is the Achilles heel of our civilization, our most critical linchpin system that everything else depends on, and yet is our most unsecure system. We've done the least to secure it, and that is a crying shame. We can harden this grid. We have the technology, but the industry fights us about it. So we do need to push to try to get that done. In the meantime, we may not have time. We need to prepare ourselves for the eventuality that it does happen. When you talk root causes, it can be things like, it's said, now this is not Greg Allison making some great reveal, this is known, that there are 9 critical, now which 9 is not known, but there are 9 critical substations in the United States that could be targeted and take down our entire grid. When the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard was told this, he said, we already got 20 targets, so what? That's scary. Now we're talking about somebody just going on with like a couple of guys with AK-47s and shooting transformers full of holes. The large transformers weigh 200 to 400 tons a piece. They're as big as a house. If you order one, by the time you order it, takes 18 months to get it on the receiving dock, and then you've got to install it. But if the whole grid's down, how do you order? How do you requisition when there's no internet, there's no computers? The money in the bank is digital, it's disappeared. The logistics for moving stuff around breaks down because people can't pump fuel. everything is unraveling. The entire supply chain unravels. So how do you replace several of these when they burn? And see what happens though, if you shoot up some stations fail, you get cascading failures that cause it to happen in many other substations. They say that once you start repairing the grid, it could take 10 years to get it all up. But they've also said the Congressional MP Task Force did an estimate 12 years ago, and they said 9 out of 10 people would die within 1 year of the grid collapse. I would say they were optimistic because they failed to account for the spent fuel rods. I'm talking about the ones outside the reactor at the nuclear power plants that could go up in smoke on contact with air because they have a zirconium cladding, which is enriched with hydrogen and inside the reactor, and they're flammable on contact with air. Now, they're under 20 foot of water in those cooling pools, but when that water evaporates off, and it evaporates at 60 gallons per minute, maybe 160, but it evaporates really fast. So they got to have pumps pumping water all the time. And they have diesel backup generators for these electric pumps, but they only have so many days fuel. And once your supply chain goes down and trucks aren't rolling and delivering fuel, you got a problem. It requires all that to keep things going. So we have probably 80,000 metric tons of hot spent fuel rods at our plants in the United States alone. That's like almost 300 times more radioactive material than all the warheads on Earth, Rick. So it would not be a pretty picture if these start burning off. So something really needs to be done. Now, all that said, there's too many ways for it to go down. Our magnetosphere is collapsing right now. That makes us more vulnerable than ever to solar flares, coronal mass ejections from the sun. We've had one in 1859 that if occurred today would definitely take the grid down. It is believed the one that was called the Carrington event. There was one called the railroad event that occurred in 1921. Believed that would take the grid down if it happened today because our grid has higher voltage long distance power transmission lines that we didn't have in 1921, and those transformers are the ones that are most vulnerable. And on top of that, maybe even the Quebec event that took Quebec out in the 80s could do us in today as our magnetosphere is dropping. So we become more and more susceptible to smaller and smaller storms. That is an issue. And on top of that, if you look at the geopolitical context of what's going on in the world today, we're at loggerheads with Iran. We are, China is getting very adventurous. They're filling their Wheaties, especially now that their economy has collapsed. They have a lot of excess manufacturing capacity. Maybe they would decide to just start grabbing things. And they're already trying to build this Silk Road everywhere. And there's already tensions in India and China at the border there and the Himalayan mountains, which I did a video on that just yesterday, I believe. So there's a lot of tension ratcheting up. There's tension in the South China Sea, the East China Sea. We're putting more naval assets in that area. And leaders of a country, typically, their primary objective is to maintain the power they have. It's not to help their people. It's them to maintain their power. And a lot of times they wag the dog and do adventurous things, even start wars if they think that's what they need to stay in power. Xi Jinping is definitely under some duress now due to his own economic collapse and due to the trade deals, due to them shutting things down, and many other factors. And so there's a lot of unhappy people there, and he might try to distract them with something else. I'm saying might. Now, all that said, North Korea had the Chungcheong gang steaming in the Gulf of Mexico with 2 fully assembled missiles and missile launchers hidden under bags of sugar. And it was discovered coming back through the Panama Canal. And at the same time, they did their first satellite overflight over Washington, D.C. And the day of the satellite flew over Washington, D.C., somebody went in with AK-47s and attacked the Metcalf, a substation that serves San Jose. Interesting. It's
when was this?
It was, I believe it was April. Now I'm getting my 13s and 16s mixed up. I believe it was April the 16th, 2013, but it might have been, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the date. But it might, I got my 16s and 13s mixed up, so I could look it up. I've got it on my chart.
But I didn't know. Okay, so good idea. Between 6 and 7 years ago, approximately.
Yeah, all this stuff happened at the same time. So that was highly suspect. So you can expect if we were to be attacked, it could be a multi-pronged attack. Now, here's what I was always considering. If somebody actually wanted, one way to quickly take us out would be to use a method called fractional orbital bombardment, which is you send something over the country on either a ballistic missile or a satellite. It's not a reentry vehicle like from a regular missile. It could be a suborbital missile, even smaller than intercontinental ballistic missile, or it could be on board a satellite, a small nuke. A small nuke actually causes a bigger EMP than a large nuke. A lot of people don't realize this. But the larger the device, the more it shields the gamma rays internally. The objective of an EMP super weapon is to generate as many gamma rays as you can. The gamma rays come out and they strip the electrons off the atoms in the atmosphere, and they cause an electric shock wave that propagates through the atmosphere, kind of a chain reaction. And that is the wave that fries your electronics. That is the wave that gets into the power systems. That is the wave that causes the most trouble. A solar coronal mass ejection is just long wave. It's called E3. And it's only picked up by long conductors like pipelines, rail lines, and long power lines. A nuclear device would also fry your smaller devices, your cell phones, and a lot of other things, because it's also got the shortwave component called E1. E2 is like supercharged lightning. That would also be a part of it, like ginormous lightning bolt. So you got all these three radiation forms coming at you. So the worst scenario is to get a nuke detonated, say right over Kansas or Nebraska, 200 miles up. It would cover just about everything in North America and wipe us out. Or you could use a smaller missile, and maybe even one launched from a balloon. Like I used to launch rockets from balloons. The kind of balloons I launched would carry the weight and be adequate for delivery system. Now, I don't have a backpack nuke, and I wouldn't want one. But what I'm telling you is, I have personally 20 years ago developed all the core technologies out of a couple of garages and built the systems and flown them that could do the delivery I'm talking about. This is existent technology that small groups can do out of a garage. You could be a terrorist organization. It said there's 80 loose nukes, or backpack nukes. Who knows what happened to them? Now, those may not be sufficient to cover an entire country, but they could definitely take out a region. Now, if you wanted to do this attack, you would want to do it where you would have some deniability. I've always thought that. Now, I'm going to tell you about somebody who had a vision. Her vision, just wow, how did a farm girl in Wisconsin see this? And how did she see it at this clarity being done the way she saw it? So there's a lady that follows my channel, and she is a prepper homesteader. She's a prepsteader, you might say. She's got a great channel called Sustainable Harvest. Check it out. Her name is Stacy. And I'm going to have her on my channel. I'm going to interview her real soon. She does a lot of good stuff. She's a smart girl, tough as nails. I really appreciate her. She's got a good heart, tough as nails, smart girl, and hard worker. Farm girl, definitely to the hilt. But she's also very intelligent. She's very in tune with Jesus Christ, who showed her this vision. She was taken out into space, and so she's had several visions. And in her visions, she's seen things, a lot of things that were like verification type visions that came true. Like dealing with her family, but she's also had these longer range visions, and she's been had a follow-up kind of getting on to her for not sharing this and spreading it out more. So I'm going to share that with you, but first let me kind of explain. Like I said, if you want to do an attack, you would want to do it in a deniable way, so they really wouldn't know where it came from. So you probably wouldn't launch it from your main launch center or any of your existing missile ports, and it's totally doable for an EMP system. And I'm not giving any great reveal. The fact that the Chung Chung gang was steaming around in the Gulf of Mexico says that even podunk little North Korea knows exactly what I'm talking about. So this is not a great reveal. Well, that Chung Chung steamer could have also been down in what's called a tramp steamer. It's not really steam operated. That's just what they call that type of class ship. But for all we know, it might have been in the Caribbean Sea, maybe off the coast of a very unstable nation, such as Venezuela, which Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia all have relations, very active relations, going on with Venezuela. Venezuela is a failed communist country that has very little control of anything going on with all these players in their front yard and backyard. So if you really wanted a site to launch something, we don't have our missile defense system, and NORAD is not looking to our south border. The DEW line is looking at the Arctic to see if anything's coming from Russia, the former Soviet Union. So our south coast is our soft underbelly in the United States of America. Anything coming from the south could get us. Russia realized that when they developed their latest ICBM, which they developed with enough capability to launch over the South Pole at us. Holy smoke. But anyway, so Russia could do it. They could launch some over the South Pole, as could Korea. This could be something on a satellite. Yes.
No, I was just going to jump in on Russia also. Russia's been spending a lot of money and putting a lot of effort into their icebreakers, and compared to the U.S., I think that they're dominating that part of travel currently. Your thoughts?
Oh yeah, well they're planning to take the Arctic. They want to develop the resources in the Arctic, and they're claiming huge expanses based on an underwater mountain chain, which is so deep it's not connected to any continental shelf. But they used a submarine to plant a flag way down in the Arctic Ocean, right on the North Pole, and they're trying to claim it all. And it's like China. China is actually actively claiming and taking possession of the South China Sea, and which is nowhere near China. It's right in the middle of Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, which is way, 1,000 miles south of China. 2,000 miles are way outside of their territory, and they have seized it. And they're also cutting all kind of deals with island nations and buying votes in the UN and building bases, which can be used as a forward basis for military operations down the road. China is also building a Silk Road, which could be used for military purposes. And that may be the real gist of what the little tension that's going on between China and India right now. China is sending a lot of military all into the Himalayas right now in those areas. There's like 3 or 4 contested areas between China and India in the Himalaya Mountains where those passes are. And so like the Yuyuan Pass that I mentioned, where they had a fist fight between the Chinese and the Indians Saturday. And it was Saturday I reported that because I was one of the first people that got that report out. So I think
Greg Allison, the legend.
I don't think any prepper beat me to that one. And in fact, I don't think you saw it on any American news. I got it out. So the thing is that you would want to do it in a deniable, plausible manner. So I had already been thinking, they're probably going to do this in Venezuela if they do that. So and I hadn't mentioned that on my channel. This is the first time I've mentioned it live. Well, on the channel in any major way. We're not live. I'm sorry, but.
Well, I got to jump in on that Venezuela thing because and I should have brought this up a minute ago, but the second season of Jack Ryan on Amazon, Jack Ryan is this guy that plays a CIA operative, and he brings up the Venezuela situation, and it's interesting how you're talking about it now. So I just want to remind people, if you're listening to this podcast and you're going, wow, this is some fascinating information, and it is, this is information that certain war games and calculations have been put into place. So this isn't anything new for those that are there to not only protect the nation, but whatever else they do. I mean, this kind of stuff's been talked about. Greg is presenting it to more of the public. I mean, he's bringing a different aspect to it, but I'm just confirming what he is saying. But it isn't like it isn't top secret.
Well,
we can talk about it, is what I'm saying. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I've had people question, how are you giving ideas to the enemy? They've already got the ideas. It's already in their doctrine. This is not new. Okay? But what is new is you haven't heard it. So you need to know to protect yourself. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to help the people because the powers that be don't really care.
They love you, Greg. They love you. They love us so much. Oh, they love us dearly. Did you see those deer over there? Uh-oh. That was actually not a corona cough. That was an anti-corona cough.
I have been tested. I tested.
I know you have, brother. I know you have.
All right. To sync this up, now I've set the stage, and I've got to have her on my channel to talk it, and I will real soon. Stacy was had a vision that Jesus took her into space over America, and she was looking down, and she saw two missiles launch from close to Venezuela, off the coast, which is the way I think it would happen, most likely. Two missiles launching off the coast of Venezuela. She told me that. I didn't prompt her. I never discussed this kind of stuff with her. When she first saw this dream, she didn't know what an EMP was. She saw that on my channel because that was one of my early videos. And she contacted me then. And we've talked about it a few times since. And she's never gone live with this on her channel. So I'm going to get her on my channel and talk it. But her channel is really just a homesteader channel. So I hadn't noticed a video where she's covered it. She's got good videos. She's great. Find her channel and by all means subscribe to it. But she said one of these went over the East Coast and one went over the middle of America and went off. So they really wanted to get to the East Coast. That's where the most people are. And over the middle of America, you could cover the country anyway. So it would get almost the entire United States. Well, if you put one over Omaha or Kansas high enough up, you could get the entire United States. But that gives you redundancy, especially for taking out the Eastern Seaboard, where a lot of our command and control or financial systems. The United States is mostly ran out of New York and Washington D.C. And that's where all our biggest cities are. We have some big cities on the West Coast, but the most population is in those areas. Now, this kind of event will not physically harm you. An MP will not harm you physically. It will take out your electronics. It will take out your power grid. I don't know if you got dental fillings and the E2 hits you, you might be hurting sorely, but it gets picked up. A nuclear EMP will set off shorter, smaller circuits with a pulse. So you're not going to be protected, including the wiring in your house. So this is beyond something that's going to just come in through your outlet. And some people advertise things that they claim will cover that. Ha ha ha. And we're talking high.
Oh yeah, you're talking about that little box that you plug in, and it's like, oh, it'll protect your whole neighborhood. All you have to do is plug in this little white box, a little outlet right there, and it is full protection.
Wires. It's got little wires this size, and they claim it can handle 100,000 amps. Well, let me tell you something. I did circuits, and I had wires feeding 400 amps in machines, and those wires were bigger than that. If you go too small, the wires go poof into.
It's internet magic, dude. It's internet magic.
Exactly. Anyway, all that said, I might get one of those devices and just have some fun with a 12-volt battery.
You can make some great podcasts out of that. Hook up a 9-volt battery and it fries it.
In any event, the car battery, dude, nice job on it. The thing is that we're vulnerable. That she saw this, and the way she saw it played out, the time factors, the hints were given to her that made it appear as if this might happen this year in December. Another thing, when I was in the Army, that makes a lot of sense. When I was in the Army and we all went home for Christmas, I thought, oh my God, if somebody wanted to tackle this would be exactly when they would do it, because we would have our pants down. It'd be hard to respond because a lot of people are going home and doing things for Christmas. And if we're down because we're being hit by something else going around, then we're even doubly more vulnerable. And I think there might be more of that coming too. So I'm not going to go into that detail. Let those that can connect dots do so. So the thing is, we're vulnerable. There are countries that we are having high tensions with right now, which might be sufficient to cause something to happen. North Korea is unstable. We don't know who is really going to be in charge or what our situation will be with them several months from now. They're good at rattling sabers now. Typically they wouldn't want to. A leader, as long as they feel like they can maintain their position, they're not going to take a chance on something like that. But if they feel like they're about to lose power, they can do crazy things. They're typically sociopaths to start with to get to a position like that, especially in a tyrannical government. To run a tyrannical government, you got to be a tyrant. And if you're a tyrant running a tyrannical government, you are by definition a sociopath, probably a psychopath. And psychopaths can be brilliant, technically, as is Kim over in North Korea. So don't shortchange him. I mean, he's had some health problems, and apparently he's come back. But we have to be aware that that's an unstable situation. We are at loggerheads with the Ayatollah's regime in Iran. Now, let me step back a minute. There are some great people in Iran. The Persian people there are really smart. They're brilliant people. And a lot of them are really nice, and the nicest people I know are from that area. I mean, people with really good hearts from Persia, from the Arabic world. I've got a guy who's keeping bees in my place now. He's a Palestinian by descent. He lived in Gutter, but real nice guy, real nice guy. In fact, I got a girl helping me out some right now, and he just gave her this beekeeping hat. If you see my videos, you'll see his hives, and I'll let him on my place, come and go as he wants, because he's a nice guy. I have no problem. A lot of people, they got a lot of hang-ups about people from different areas. People are the same inside everywhere. We all nod for yes and shake for no, and mama is a common word in languages around the world. Mama. We're the same. We have the same kind of hearts. There's good and bad everywhere. We got plenty of bad people right here. We tend to have a superiority complex because we have been number one for a while of late, but we need to not let that color our vision too much. We've got to really understand and respect people. Some of the beautiful people in the world, I think, are the little pygmies in Africa. They have this polyphonic mode of singing when they go through the forest. It is so beautiful to hear. I mean, it is just awesome. And that comes from the heart. They are even the Bantu tribes in Africa pick on them. It's the most unfortunate, that they get picked on the way they do. There are beautiful people everywhere. And we have to understand that. The problem is it's the governments and the leaders who play their power games and pit people against each other. And I think if we could all deal people to people, we could get around a lot of this stuff. A whole lot of it. Maybe not everything, but we could get around a whole lot of it. And I think one of the big ways to diffuse that is to be able to deal with people directly and not give so much power to the big international corporations, the globalist organizations, the governments, to localize our purchases, when you got a dollar bill, Rex, and every time you spend it, that's a vote. So if I take a dollar bill out of my wallet and go buy something with it, I'm voting for more of that something, for the organization that produces it. Every time I spend one of these, that's a vote right there. That is one vote every time I spend one. And we need to put our votes more wisely these days. Who do you want to vote for? Who do you want to support? Who do you want running the world? I say this, these big corporations, when the power goes down, they're not going to exist. If all your economic support has been to them, then you're voting for an infrastructure supply chain that's going to go poof. Go support your local farmers. Go support your local community, your local artisans, the smaller companies. Don't even go to the big companies that come in and do your repairs in your home. Go to the individual old guys who really know how to do it and do it right, and they're being beleaguered and put out of business over regulation from the cities because they get the lobbyists from these bigger companies convincing them to pass 20 tests you got to go through, $1,000 to $1,000 a test for these individuals, and they spend a ton of money having to take all these tests, and the overhead's killing them. But for a big company, it's nothing. It means market share. So they hire a bunch of green-nosed kids come out and work on your house who don't even know where to stick a wire hardly. So I've had to come back and
I'll tell you where to put that wire.
Exactly. So support the smaller outfits. That's who the powers that be want to run out of business. That's how they want to take our sovereignty. They want to take our souls. Don't let them. Let's maintain who we are. Let's vote with our money for our neighbors, our friends. And here's the beauty of the tribe system, Rex. We'll develop economies within each tribe. We'll have different tribes because there's different groups all over the country. Everybody can't relocate. A lot of people see value in different places, and that's a good thing because we don't have all our eggs in one basket. You never know whether a catastrophe is going to hit or something's going to happen. By being spread out, you have redundancy. You have redundancy of dissimilarity, which is even better. And it could be that people from one group could move around if need be and join with another group. But we can also trade between each other. We can establish, Rex, our own economy, our own trade, our own way of dealing with each other, internally within our small groups and externally. But, I presented that habitat concept on a video with you. And, I've got this Mars habitat. We'll have to go there. Yeah.
Well, I want to jump in here, and the reason I'm going like this is because I'm getting excited about what you're talking about in a sense, because you have been a guest on Leak Project. How long have we known each other now? A couple of years?
Oh, let's see. It goes back to 2016, I think.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
So about 4 years then. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have talked on Leak Project before about microeconomies. You and I have talked about these microeconomies, micro communities, things being more local, etc. And we are living it right now. We are seeing the beginning, the growing pains of a system that is globalized, that is actually moving more towards a microeconomy localized system. Now, with that being said, the globalists are going to have a very difficult time relinquishing control. So now we're seeing, and we don't need to get into the specific numbers like 060606A1WO or the 6666 legislation and the traffic.
Trace.
We don't need to talk about any of that, but it's like, okay, so the more that they see we are starting to wake up and say, hey, we don't need that orange juice coming from Asia when we live in the United States. Or if somebody's in Asia, they don't need something coming from the United States. They can get it where they're at, And I love your hat, by the way. That thing looks beautiful on you, bro. That is totally you. And I actually have a liner set aside to send to you. So as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to email you a Nephilim liner, and you will be able to put that underneath the hat. So that's like the last liner I've got. Now I'm waiting for stock. I just shipped out 20 orders. It's like crazy. But
does that make me a Nephilim?
Yeah, we're Nephilim, bro. So no, it's actually the only ones I've got left. Nephilim ones.
I think I need an immune boost right now with all this stuff we're talking about.
Ooh, is that the C60 from C60purplepower.com that Ken sent out to you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you been taking it? Nice. I need to go upstairs and get some now. How you liking it? Nice. Yep. Now, I notice when I take like a hero dose and I'm doing a think tank session, my mind just goes, and I start just getting in the zone. But Greg, stuff that we were talking about 3-4 years ago is like, this is our time to shine. This is our opportunity. And the powers that be see that, and they're like, well, we're going to come up with this number to freak you out. And then people are like, oh, no, we're going to have a digital ID passport. We're going to have to get injected every week.
It's like if
you give them that power, but I'm not giving them that power.
They're putting it in our face. And the fact that they can put it in our face tells us that they're confident.
Wow.
We can take that. Because you know what? They have what they have because we vote for their stuff and we spend money on their products. So
I like that dollar vote.
Take it back. Vote for your neighbor. Vote for your friend. Vote for your family. Vote in your community. Vote in your state. As much as possible, don't buy their stuff. Stay away. Keep things local. And, the beauty of this, the habitat concept that I present on their channel a couple of times, and we got to go to Mars, Rex. We got to do a session real soon. We need to go to Mars.
Dude, I think I actually originate from Mars.
You do? In
a past life or something. I don't know, but I've got this just fascinating connection. Either that or Moab, one of the two. So
you're definitely from Mars, Rex. We go way back.
Nice.
Thousands. Okay.
We lost everybody there. They were with us until the Mars part, and hey, it's for entertainment, folks. Remember, this is entertainment purposes only. This is a live action role playing session. Any similarities or coincidences are just coincidental.
Totally coincidental.
Totally.
Totally coincidental. Rex and I cut up. We have fun.
We do. We have fun, and we also learn. It's like, but it's more difficult for me to not. If I'm bored, I'm not really learning. I'm just like, next. So whatever.
Okay, so think about this. I got this concept for a habitat that you can live in and make a living out of. And I recently put a video on both my Galactic Greg's and my Green Greg's channel about that habitat. And we should go there on your show and just fly around on Mars in this habitat that's done in a sim world that's based on my habitat concept. And the habitat is something that it's based on the Gervais family, who grows 6,000 to 7,000 pounds of food on a tenth of an acre a year. But instead of having it all spread out on a fifth of an acre plot, I condensed it to a tenth of an acre, and I built it like a supercharged Earthship. But except it's not the Earthship design, but it uses a lot of common philosophies which are used in other structures. So they can't claim that I've stole it from because it pre-exists. It's the use of thermal mass and a lot of other similar things. So I believe these homes can be beautiful. You can make a living out of them. You can live in them. You can grow all your food in them. You can do production in this home. It's an amazing concept. You can build it out of the materials wherever you stand, wherever you build it out. For the most part, the bulk of the material will come from right there, if you so desire, unless you have a place where the groundwater is really close to the surface. In that case, you want to build it all up. But that can be done with similar materials brought from nearby. Again, staying local. So this home could be built to be extremely sustainable. It's the most sustainable thing I can imagine. And you can build them anywhere. I call them a universal habitat. That's why we got one on Mars. They will go anywhere in the desert, in Colorado, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona. So this habitat concept, Rex, you're going to have all your energy. You're not going to need much in the way of electricity because you're heating and cooling. Most are coming from the sun and the earth. Between the two, you can accomplish almost over 99% of that. So your electrical requirements will be very small comparatively. You can have small solar arrays to run your devices. You can have solar heated hot water for most of your hot water. You could augment it if you so desire with electricity or gas or whatever you want to do. You could put a greenhouse roof over this structure if you so desire. It would be a multi-level structure, and to give you more flexibility within that space, you would be growing over all the top surface area of it. That's how on a tenth of an acre you get a tenth of an acre. Actually, I come up with a way that's really more than a tenth of an acre. So it would be incredibly productive, and you won't need anything. We're actually still there. All right. You won't really need anything from the outside with a home like this. You're going to meet most of your needs there. You can have your water, your power. You're not going to need to travel around a lot. So honestly, you're not going to need very much from anybody outside. So this is one good way, except maybe internet for working from home if you're going to do that kind of thing. And you'll want some electronics devices, I suppose. But you're not going to need the kind of stuff we need today. You can be almost entirely self-sufficient. You could be entirely self-sufficient if you so desire. Or you can be plugged in if you desire that too, through the internet and so forth. But it's going to buy you so much to live that way that it's going to disempower the powers that be, because you will be essentially free. You're not going to need them. So, they come to you and say, hey, I'm going to give you a rifle, and I want you to climb over the hill and shoot that guy on the other side because he's bad and he wants to come over and get you or something. And you look at them, really? I don't think so. I ain't going to do it. Why should I? I'm happy and fat and happy right here. And the guys on the other side telling him to do that, they're going to look at them and go, really? You got to be kidding me. That guy over there, he ain't going to bother me. He's fat and happy in his house, and I ain't going to go bother him because I'm fat and happy in my house. So, this, I think, is a pathway to peace. When people have what they need at their fingertips, everything they need, and are living in communities that are close to each other. I grew up in an era when communities were family, when the neighbors were family, when there were extended families. If you don't have to move around to chase your jobs because you can either work from home through the internet, like I'm doing presently, or if you can produce everything you need from 3D printers and lathes and pottery wheels or whatever you got in your basement, or grow your food down there and sell food or whatever you're doing. You could have any enterprise you want in these homes. and you've got ways to trade and barter with each other, you don't need anything else. We set up a micro community of people living in self-sustainable homes that trade with each other, support each other, produce what they need, and you have in the community a broader range of skill sets, be it medical, medicinal, food preparation, storage, making instruments, blacksmithing, electronic smithing, whatever you need. The hackers, that might be useful too. So you have whatever you need to keep the community going, and you need people that will keep the bad guys out and the bugs and other things. So, but that's what you get with the community. You get a broad spectrum of skills you can apply and intermesh together so that the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts. If you're a lone prepper, you're one part all by yourself, hoping the world don't fall down on top of your head. And you might get away with that for a while, but how long? You're going to be very lonely after a while. We are social animals. And another beauty of this is if you got things going around and you're self-contained, you're not exposed. And if you have to send someone out where things are going around and you're worrying about them, then you can have another little special home set aside where they can stay until such time that you feel comfortable bringing them back in. Meantime, everybody inside your community can hug and whatever, hold hands, prayer circles, dance on the dance floor together, whatever you want to do. They can be together, pray together. You can be together. You can have that social network. And people can be people again within those communities. And you won't have to worry about so much stuff that we worry about today. We live there's so many challenges today, Rex, even if this vision, Stacy's vision is that this could be averted if the country repents. I will say that. It can be averted. I will also say, you may remember the many times I've held a funnel up on your channel and talked about our multiverse and how we can play, we can use the power of intention to play ourselves along different tracks down the reality of what's coming. And that has to be the case if we have free will. And if I need to, we can do another session on that if you want it sometime. But I do believe we have free will. If we don't, then we live in a tyranny. Because there is a timeline and everything that was and is exists simultaneously, but there are many ises, and we get the universe is like a multi-track tape player, infinite track player that you can, through your power of intention, choose which track you play down. That's where you choose. They're all there. Everything is there. It's all one ginormous play set, Rex, and we're in it. But we need to get ourselves into a little better track of reality. And that's why we had our prayer sessions, was to try to motivate that. And we need to get more people involved in that, because I think they're doing that on the other side of the equation and putting us into a bad pickle. So we got to get out of the bad pickle. But there's more of us than there are them. There's more of us than there are people who would control us, whoever them is, whatever them is, in any country or any place you might be, where people are trying to rule you with a tyranny. I always know for a fact that there's always more of you than there are of them. And if you decide to have your communities and you don't empower them, what can they do? They lose a lot of that.
I want to jump in on that because it's interesting, because they know that, right? They know that. And they also know human nature, and they know specific triggers and certain ideas and ideals and well, it's, let's look at it this way: conversational hypnosis patterns. But they know how to incorporate certain technologies, whether it's a commercial or a news article or some type of science, that will attract people at a level that they don't even consciously understand. I've studied this for years, but I was reading into it more recently about a couple of
what's it called? Neurolinguistic programming?
Neurolinguistic programming is essentially just it's like a manual for the mind. So that's a part of it. That's like a broad spectrum, but there are people out there that know how you work and how you think based upon a car that you might be interested in, or a specific program that you listen to. They can then come up with 10 other pieces to your puzzle and put together virtually everything from just a couple of minute ideas of who you are. They don't need to know everything about you to understand who you are, because they can pick up on just a couple of things. They're that good. And people don't understand how they're controlled sometimes, because they're not picking up on it consciously, and the subconscious mind is what influences the conscious mind oftentimes. Your thoughts?
Oh yeah, it's like I've talked to a friend and mentioned the show, and I turn on my TV and there's an ad, for that. It's like, really? Wow. Or you ask a question, kind of off the cuff about something, and then you see it on your screen. That's like, that's scary. So yeah, they monitor you with all kind of algorithms, and they have a picture. They develop a model of who you are, predictive model. It's kind of like the movie. What was that movie where they were arresting people for crimes they were going to commit?
Minority Report.
That's it. Arresting people for crimes they were going to commit before they'd ever done them. So yeah, they're actually have that kind of technology available. So that's the scary thing about all the monitoring, the trace, and the patents that you've talked about on this show. The HR bill you mentioned, 6666, 46s, which is actually an appropriate. No, that is an authorization bill for money to put into a system like that. And so far, it's not gone. It's been introduced. A bill has to go. Essentially, how you put money into the House of Representatives has to start all funding bills, and they originate in an authorization committee first. The money has to be authorized, then it has to be appropriated. That takes two separate bills. A bill goes into a committee, first into a subcommittee where it's introduced, and typically gets co-sponsors, and they try to get it through the subcommittee. If the subcommittee approves it, goes to the committee, and the committee or the subcommittee may combine it with another bill, rewrite it, just that it may die of not getting any support. It just may go nowhere. But then again, it could go for it as is, or be combined into an omnibus bill, which is typically what happens with spending bills. It's all these big omnibus bills where they just pack everything in. That's what I call them, one bus, omnibus, and the double Dutch bus. But anyway, it has to be,
so much.
so it has to go through the larger committee and be introduced to the floor and voted on to the floor. Then it's got to go to the Senate, and the Senate has to have the same kind of process. And then the bills have to be identical to be approved, and then they're signed by the president. So there's a lot of wickets these things have to go through. So then the money has to be authorized, and then it's got to be appropriated, which is another bill. This is an authorization bill. So there are many wickets along the way that people could stop it. So look up your congressman and call them and say, hey, I don't like this. I don't like that. Tell them what you think, and do that. Call your congressman. Be active. One of my videos,
Be really nice to them, because oftentimes flattery will get you places.
Right. And whenever you call them, don't bring up 5 or 6 subjects, just one. Because they're going to, whenever you bring it up, they're going to codify that in one subject for action. The staffers will typically. So make it one subject, be polite, honorable representative, such and such. Appreciate what you've been doing, but there's something got me concerned. Here it is, and I would like for you to do X, Y, Z, or just X. Be simple. Cut it to the chase. Don't be flowery and all over the map. Make it short and sweet. No more than 3 paragraphs, 1 page. Letters are good because you get so much email these days. Or we follow up with a phone call, which is really good. And there's a switchboard number for all the Congress. And I included that number in one of my videos recently when I was talking about some of the subjects I talked about with our buddy Paul Cottrell. So I did put a switchboard number on one of my videos. So there's one number you can reach anybody in the Congress with. So these are things you can do. But the key thing I think for us is if you've not prepped, oh my God, you're running late. But we have another window of opportunity. There are other shoes that may drop, and we've talked about just one here with the power grid. That's not the only shoe that may drop on us. We've got a lot of challenges out there in front of us right now, and I have this overarching feeling, Rex, that we are in the calm right now. It's not the eye of the storm, and the next wall is probably, when it hits us, it may be far worse than what we've seen. So I hope I'm wrong, and we can use our power of intention and meditation, hope to put us in a better place, and maybe all this will boil away, and we'll be in a great place. Rex, I've already started organizing communities. I got some help. The good news is I'm getting some help to do this. And so, as you're aware, we have a tribe in kind of not way up north, but just south of Highway 40 in eastern Arizona, and you're aware of that group. And we also have a tribe here in my area, and I've got people forming and coming together to work on this. And we've had a meeting here. We're about to have another. We just had to inadvertently had to cancel our last meeting, but we're going to have another meeting. And these people are coming and they're actually helping me out a little bit. So that's going to be a big help. So we're going to build probably one of these universal habitat prototypes in the, like, hopefully as soon as it dries out. We'll have to see how everything comes together. That's kind of the hope right now, is to get some of that going. We may have to do a GoFundMe or something to pay for it, but we're getting this kind of stuff started, and I'm trying to coordinate. The reason I'm asking people to email me how5space@aol.com is, what you'll get an email asking you some general questions. What I'm trying to figure out is what kind of skill sets you have, what area you're in. Can we link you with another group in your area? Are you willing to relocate? Maybe you'd go with some other group, and then we can compare skill sets. So I'm trying to facilitate the kind of information that will allow groups to start popping up all over the country. And you and Diamond both there in the Pagosa Spring area, you guys are practically already a tribe yourselves. So they might say that's three. I know you and him went out and looked at some places in that area back a few months ago, and you had Top Knot with you and a few other people. So, of course, Top Knot's got his place in Michigan.
He's got a place in Michigan, but he also got a place here in Southern Colorado recently. And I just want to add something, because I think it's important right now, what you're talking about, especially because of what you are presenting. There's going to be a lot of, and you even brought this up earlier, there might be a lot of people out there going, wow, I mean, this is some pretty serious information. How legit is Greg? And I just want to bring up something. A couple of years ago, Greg put together one of those Power Grid conferences, and he had people from very high levels of security at the organization, or at the presentation, that had also contact with him. We're talking about as high up as it gets, or as high up as it gets, folks. So that's very important. He's not just saying, hey, look, let's put something together. Yeah, let's have some fun. That's the kind of stuff I do. But, I'm just a crazy conspiracy scientist. And you know what, this whole social distancing thing, I love it. I'm like, you have to stand 6 feet away from me. Get away from me. I love people. I love them so much. I just oftentimes, especially because I'm so different, I go outside and I realize how different I am. I talk to people wherever I go, pretty much almost wherever I go, about what we talk about, Greg. And you get me. People here get me. But I go outside and people are like, dude, like, microwave radio, what are you talking about? Microwave towers? What? Get out of here, man. I'm like, I know. I'm like, whether I'm getting a Jeep or whether I'm getting, going to the dentist, or whether I'm whatever, dude, I'm talking about the same stuff. So thank you for listening to me, Greg, because I'd be even crazier if it wasn't for you, man.
I got a kick out of that video where you're driving around, speeding through the neighborhoods there and out in the desert somewhere, and you got out and you danced around in front of your car and you got back and you just drove. Never said a word. I thought that was funny. I said, sure, he's going to say something a little bit.
I'm so glad you get me. Let's do another podcast soon. And the next one that we do, this is, like you said, a GoFundMe thing. That's interesting, because if we put together on paper the blueprints for this town, this micro community, and if we can show how it can be profitable, nanu, if we can show how it can actually be secure from a solar flare or some, as much as possible, then hey, that could be something that could be very successful, that could help a lot of people. There's a community out in New Mexico. Where is it at? By Angel Fire? I don't remember if it's by Angel Fire, but it's a community. It's basically an off-grid community where these people are building these earth houses. And it's the biggest off-grid community in America that I know of. And they're doing it so inexpensive, and they're so nice.
Hey, look, you can be artistic with this, and you should be. The whole idea of this home I have is you make it beautiful, make it efficient. So suddenly you're in a home where you got like no utility bill. It's cheap. The environmental footprint is like zero, and you can grow your food out of it. You can make a living out of it. It's resilient to all kind of stuff that would blow away a stick-built house. It's so much more robust. And once you get in there, you're going to say, gee, why in the world would I ever want to live in anything else? And I think you could have a paradigm shift in thinking where everybody would suddenly get it and go, man, there's nothing else I would possibly want. I really think it'd be that kind of thing. That's why we got to get it going. So I think this is a very beautiful concept. And they need to be built individualistically and artistically. And by the way, I do have an architect friend in Tunisia who's interested in drawing some of the stuff up. So we've got some prospects. I may have one also in my tribe here that I'm starting in North Alabama. He might be willing to. And there's also the prospects of a tribe in British Columbia, by the way, that area up in Canada. And we got people interested in, well, there's tribal groups. We're talking people overseas too, in other countries who are interested in forming groups. So we can facilitate people anywhere. We're not nationalistic in this. We're just trying to help people. I mean, I don't care what country you're from. You might be in Guangdong, China. You might be in Tehran.
Where's that at?
Those are in countries that we're having some challenges with at the nationalistic level, nation to nation. But that don't mean person to person, mano to mano, that we got to have a problem or an issue.
Right on, man. That's what I'm talking about. Well, Greg, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to recommend everybody that enjoys these presentations, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, make sure you're still subscribed. I'm going to leave the link for Greg's YouTube channel. I tried to say 2 words at once there. I'm going to leave the YouTube link for Greg's YouTube channel, specifically in the video description box. So make sure to check that out, Green Greg's YouTube channel, and be the change the world needs to see, everybody. And that is being the change you want to see. Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thank you, Rex. Bye, everyone.